Holy City Center Radio, it is episode 139, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. Hope your week is off to a pretty good start. It is hump day. We are already halfway to the weekend, and I'm already looking forward to it. You know, coming off of vacation and, having to get back into the swing of things with jobs and work and everything else. It's been a little tough, but thankfully my entire family is still in town, so it's been nice to have them just relax and spend some time with them and get away from work. And it's making the transition a little easier, even though they get to have fun all day because they're still on vacation while I'm stuck at work. But it is nice to come home and have the house full with people that you love and care about. And normally I in this part of the podcast I also talk about maybe things I'm watching and you're reading, listening to, whatever it may be. And there's been a bunch of shows that have either come out or that I wanted to, catch up on or whatnot. Just haven't been able to. I haven't watched any of the Righteous Gemstones new season yet, for instance. And, I know people have probably been diving into that. So not a whole lot to share as far as that's concerned, but that's okay because we got lots of news to get to. So let's not waste any more time. The right to an abortion in South Carolina is once again back before the state's highest court. This was on Tuesday, and as of this recording, this is the most up-to-date information I have. There has been no ruling yet from the state Supreme Court. Again, as of this recording, who knows what will happen by the time this comes out. I'm not expecting a decision today when I'm recording this on Tuesday, but you just never know. But this is where it stands at this moment. So on Tuesday, as I mentioned, the abortion ban back in court as Republicans are trying to restore the ban that was already overturned back in January. And what's the big difference? Well, as we've mentioned before, the bill that is currently being challenged and is on pause because of this, challenge is basically the same exact bill that the state Supreme Court ruled as unconstitutional back in January. But one big difference is that a potential swing vote is now on the Supreme Court. Why is that? Well, the state Supreme Court is now an all-male body. And that's right. South Carolina is the only state in the nation whose Supreme Court is entirely made up of men. And that new Supreme Court, and specifically that new swing vote, who we'll talk about in a moment, grill lawyers over whether patients have enough time to get an abortion after learning of their pregnancy, as the justices weighed whether a new ban is similar to the unconstitutional one that got shot down earlier this year. A 3-2 majority back in January tossed a similar law that banned abortion once cardiac activity is detected, which is at about 6 weeks and before most people even know they're pregnant. As you all are well aware, I'm sure, if you've been listening to this podcast, Republican Governor Henry McMaster recently signed into law a very similar ban that starts, again, once cardiac activity is detected. That restriction has been placed on hold as the case involving the new ban moves through the courts. Meanwhile, abortion remains legal here in South Carolina through 22 weeks, which was what was in place during when Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. So lawyers for the state and abortion providers are presenting their arguments today, going head to head. And for the second, like I said, this is the second time that we have to do this since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the federal protections last summer. Now, I mentioned that change in the court's makeup. So Justice Kay Hearn, who was the author, actually, of the lead opinion back in January when they said that the South Carolina ban was unconstitutional, and she was the court's only woman. She left the position after reaching the court's mandatory retirement age. So now an all-male bench is what we're faced with after the recently sworn-in Justice Gary Hill was put into place. So, like I said, the bill is essentially the same, and there really is no reason for them to find a different decision. However, when the decision is 3-2, and one of the people in that category of 3 is now gone, you're looking at a 2-2 vote, and this new person is now the swing vote. Are they going to uphold what his predecessor just a few months back ruled on? Or is he going to decide, no, this ban is constitutional. We're going to allow it. That's the big question. And a lot of people are very, very interested in what's going to happen. So that's where we're at on Tuesday. The argument started. Like I said, I'm not expecting, based on what I've read, any decision today when I'm recording on Tuesday. But when you're listening to this on Wednesday or maybe later, who knows what could have happened. So as always, I'll keep you up to date. Whenever there is a decision on the next podcast that I record, I'll be sure to fill you all in case you missed the news. I'm sure it'll be hard to miss, though. It'll be, especially if they decide to uphold the ban and let it go, it's going to be everywhere in the news. But regardless, we'll discuss it once there is a decision. Well, we're almost at Independence Day, and one of the area's most popular places to watch fireworks has been canceled. The Folly Association of Business, also known as FAB, which is, by the way, an organization that puts on the fireworks displays at Folly Beach, not just for 4th of July, but any other time they do any kind of fireworks. They also are behind some of the most popular events throughout the year on Folly Beach. But on Tuesday, they announced that due to what they say is exceptionally high tides at dusk on the 4th of July, the fireworks display has been canceled. The organization said there will not be enough area on the beach for the pyrotechnics trailer and the surrounding setup that will be needed to actually execute this display. The organization says they have investigated alternative sites on the beach as well, but none would be able to be utilized without violating safety clearance regulations. So, because of what they're saying is exceptionally high tides at the time they would do the fireworks, and the fact that there really was nowhere else on the beach where they'd have enough room to, guarantee everyone's safety, no 4th of July fireworks on Folly Beach this year. I don't know. They didn't say in their statement if they maybe looked at doing it a different day. Apparently, they either just nixed that idea from the beginning for whatever reason, or just decided we don't really want to move this after looking into it. But whatever, you know, whatever they decided as far as another day, that is not on the table either. So no fireworks out on Folly Beach this year. Like I said, pretty disappointing. A lot of people like to go out there. I'm not saying it's the wrong decision by any stretch, but I'm just saying it's disappointing that this is the reality. A lot of people on the James Island area and Folly Beach itself, of course, would go out there. A nice, quick little, drive to get out to the beach. And I'm sure plenty of others, seeing fireworks on the beach is pretty unique. And, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other fireworks displays going on all throughout the Charleston area. But as you may know, anytime there's a popular event, it is heavily populated with attendees here in this area. So that just means all the people that would have went to Folly, if they decide to still go see fireworks, are just going to end up going to one of the other ones. So expect it to be perhaps a little bit busier than normal wherever you are going to see fireworks this year. Almost $26 million from the Federal Transit Administration will be going to the Charleston Area Regional Transport Authority, aka CARTA. That money will be used for several upgrades, including a new transit hub in North Charleston. This money, for those wondering, is coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed by the Biden administration. And CARTA Chairman Mike Seeking said the FTA, which is the Federal Transit Administration I mentioned before, has provided them a grant that will allow them to find a new transit center along Rivers Avenue near McMillan Avenue, which is being called Shipwatch Square. This hub will eventually replace the current, what they call Super Stop, that's just down the street on Cosgrove Avenue. The federal dollars will also help purchase 7 new electric buses, 2 mobile charging stations, and it will create a training program with Trident Tech as the new hub, excuse me. Seeking said that the additional buses will put them around over 40 in their fleet as they prepare to fully transition their fleet to electric power. They currently have around 110 buses, so they still got a little way to go. But as we've seen these last few years, especially, they are transitioning to these electric buses, and this grant is going to help them get over the 40 mark. Now, one interesting side note on this, as I mentioned, this is part of that bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed by the Biden administration. It was their plan, and it went through both the House and Senate, and had support from both parties. It's not equal necessarily, but it was anytime someone from both parties, no matter if it's one or the entire body, it's considered bipartisan. Um, of course, there were many Republicans who voted against it, one of which is Republican Representative Nancy Mace, who represents the first district. She sent out a press release on Tuesday saying that she will be taking part in a press conference to tout the securing of these funds for CARTA, which is rich because she voted against the infrastructure law. So it'll be interesting to see on Wednesday today what exactly she says at this press conference. As I said, she voted against the infrastructure law, which means she voted against these funds. So it'd be interesting to see if she tries to take credit for this. And the way, like I said, the way the press release was worded, like she's going to talk about securing the funds. Can you really talk about how you got money for something when you voted against the project? I mean, once it's passed, I know it's not like any Republicans have voted against it are just gonna be like, nope, no, thank you. We don't want the money. I voted against it. Don't send us money. They're obviously going to take the money regardless for their state. But should they be able, and this goes for the opposite, of course, if there is some kind of law that Democrats vote against and then, you know, they end up taking money from whatever program they voted against, they shouldn't take credit for it either. Like you said no to this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what she says. I just find it interesting that she'll try to take credit. Now, again, maybe because the money is there, she did some work to try to get this certain funds to certain areas in the state. But it just, seems disingenuous to hold a press conference and act like you supported this 100% when you voted no back when the votes on this were being tallied. So we'll see what she says. But more importantly, Carta getting a nice chunk of change to help make some improvements, and most importantly, perhaps continuing that transition to electric vehicles. And we'll wrap up the show with some sad news. Curtis Inhabitant Sr. Died on Monday, June 26th. He had a long tenure of public service here in the state. Charleston County, amongst many other news organizations and other people in the community, posted about this on social media about his passing. But Charleston County provided some specifics about his career, saying that Inhabitant served as a Charleston County council member. He was also the first African American appointed to the Charleston County Election Committee and the first African American mayor of Ravenel. After all that, he was also a South Carolina representative in the 90s. So, a very long career as a politician and being in public service. So, certainly some sad news for the area losing anytime, a public servant passes. It's always sad, even if they didn't necessarily vote the way you always wanted them to, or, they were part of the opposing party. We this sometimes get lost in politics, but, these are people who wanted to serve the public, and I'm sure most, especially, it's hard to think about these things with our current state of politics. If we've seen how craven and horrible some politicians are, so I don't know if this is always going to be the case, but prior to this current, you know, uh, season, I guess we're in when it comes to politics, there was a respect for politicians, even if they were on the opposite side of your beliefs. And, even if you disagreed with them, you firmly believed that they were trying their best for the community. So, again, anytime someone who dedicated a good portion of their life, if not the entirety of it, to trying to make things better in the community, it's a sad day when they pass. So thoughts are certainly with his family and friends, and take a moment to maybe look back and see some of the things he accomplished while in office, not just the things I highlighted, which are just the fact that he was the first black person appointed to the election commission and the first black mayor of Ravenel. That is already impressive. But you can go and check out some of the reports about his death, which recap some of his political accomplishments as well. So that'll do it for this episode of Holy City Center Radio. I hope the rest of your Wednesday goes well, as I wish the same for the rest of your week. And I'll be back on Friday to chat with you. Thanks for listening. If you want to help out, please rate and review the podcast. You can also subscribe to make sure you don't miss any episodes. You can also help out even more by going to holycitycenter.com/shop to pick up some merchandise, or by going to patreon.com/holycitycenter to sign up for one of those tiers. I also want to thank Cole Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this episode, as well as Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. I will talk to you all on Friday with the latest news, so be sure, like I said, to subscribe and tune in. Until then, good night and good luck.